This day in sports history. Are you a hockey fan? Then you'll love Eric Zweig's new book, Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2. It's a treasure trove of untold tales, bizarre incidents, and captivating trivia that will leave even the most devoted puckhead astounded. The intense rivalries, epic showdowns, and historic clashes that shaped the NHL's early years, it's all in there. Zweig uncovers the true stories that helped shape the sport, ensuring that you will never look at hockey the same way again. Check out Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. Welcome back for today's edition of This Day in Sports History. This is Steve White, your humble host, and I'd just like to say thanks. Whether this is your first visit or you've been here since the beginning, I appreciate you stopping in and giving this episode of This Dish a listen. It's October 31st, and on this day in 1959, a cannonball run sent tremors through the Deep South. This was an SEC football battle of undefeated teams. You got top-ranked and defending national champion LSU and the number 3 Ole Miss Rebels. 67,327 people piled into Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge for this one, but many more got left out in the cold. Tickets were at such a premium for this game that one guy even offered up his Cadillac for a set of 4 tickets. Another offered his wife for just a pair. No word on whether either one of those gentlemen made it to the game or how much longer they were married after that, but it does give an idea about how big this game was. Both teams had stingy defenses. Ole Miss had allowed only 1 touchdown. LSU, even stingier, allowing only a pair of field goals in their first 6 games. The Rebels kicked a field goal in the first quarter to make it 3-0, and it stayed that way into the fourth quarter. Halloween night in Baton Rouge on this night was rainy, and it made field conditions difficult. And because of that, Ole Miss decided to play a field position game and punted on first down several times in the game. In the fourth quarter, Ole Miss punted it away again. Back deep for the Tigers was number 20, Billy Cannon. Here's LSU's radio man J.C. Politz with the call from that night.
Stands on his own 28. He gets a pass from center. He boots it and gets another nice kick away going way downfield. Billy Cannon watches it bounce. He takes it on his own 11. He comes back upfield to the 15, stumbles momentarily. He's at the 20, running hard at the 25, gets away from one man to 30, still runs at 25, at the 35, 25. He's down to 50. He's in the 40, 45, 40. He scores! Billy Cannon raced some 89 yards for a touchdown. Listen to the cheer for Billy Cannon as he comes off the field. Great All-American.
Cannon's 89-yard punt return for a touchdown and the PAT made it 7-3, but there was still 10 minutes left on the clock. Ole Miss responded with a long, methodical drive down to the LSU 2. Facing a 4th and goal with 18 seconds left, Rebel quarterback Doug Elmore kept the football and tried to make it around the left end. But Cannon made the initial hit, and Elmore was stacked up by a host of Tigers to preserve the 7-3 win. The punt return helped secure the Heisman Trophy for Cannon. The run is a huge part of LSU Tiger football lore, and it is still shown on the Jumbotron prior to every LSU football home game. It was the 17th consecutive win for LSU. That streak was broken the following week with a loss at Tennessee. LSU and Ole Miss would actually meet later in the season at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. That game was a completely different story, with Ole Miss winning that one 21-0. On this day in 1950, 3 years after Major League Baseball, the NBA color barrier was broken. Earl Big Cat Lloyd had been a 9th-round selection out of West Virginia State in the most recent NBA draft. Lloyd was not the first black player to be drafted or signed to a contract. That distinction belongs to Chuck Cooper, who was a 2nd-round pick by the Boston Celtics, and he'd signed a contract to play in Boston ahead of Lloyd. But on this night, Lloyd's Washington Capitals tipped off their season against the Rochester Royals, a day ahead of the Celtics. The 6'6", 220-pound Lloyd was known more for his defense, but he did manage to score 6 in his pro debut to go along with 10 rebounds and 5 assists. Outside of this game and earning the distinction of being the first black player to play in the NBA, his season was not very memorable. He only played in 7 games, averaging 6 points and 7 boards. The Capitals franchise actually folded midway into the season. Lloyd spent the next year serving in the military before coming back to play in the NBA. He then spent 6 years with the Syracuse Nationals and played his final 2 seasons with the Detroit Pistons. On this day in 1994, it was Venus Williams making her professional tennis debut, and unlike Serena's pro debut that I talked about earlier this week, Venus's start was a bit more memorable. Venus was 14 years old when she played her first professional match in Oakland, and her appearance was highly anticipated. It had been 3.5 years since she'd played in her last official junior tourney. Venus had requested a wild card entry for the Oakland Bank of the West Classic. It was a calculated maneuver to beat the implementation of the age eligibility rule, or what became known as the Capriati rule, and it was put in place in 1995 as a means to restrict players under the age of 16 from playing too many tournaments and then burning out. Venus's wild card entry was accepted, and she was matched against number 59 player in the world, Sean Stafford. The Oakland tournament was a prestigious indoor event. The previous 4 editions had been won by Martina Navratilova and Monica Seles. Now, while Venus had not played any tournaments in nearly 4 years, she had been working with well-known coach Rick Macci. Macci was a little hesitant to let her play, but in the lead-up to her debut, he saw a lioness in a cage just waiting to be let out. But practice is not competition, so while much was anticipated, a result really wasn't expected. But Venus came out firing 115-mile-per-hour serves on the indoor carpeted surface. She was so raw and inexperienced in tournament tennis that she didn't know that she could actually sit down courtside during changeovers. She had never been allowed to sit during practice. She admitted years later that she went into the match with zero strategy or any plan on how to win the match. But she not only won, she won impressively in straight sets, beating Stafford 6-3, 6-1. The win floored Macci and a lot of other people. Macci said everybody was in shock that this girl can walk off the street after not playing a competitive tournament, junior, college, no matter nothing, right into the pros and beat the number 59 player in the world. It had never been done, and it will never be done again. Well, that sent her on to round 2 and a meeting with top seed and world number 2, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario. Sanchez Vicario had won the French and the U.S. Open and finished second at the Aussie in '94. In that match, Venus was up a set and 3-1 in the second, but then lost 11 straight games to lose the match. The media that had gathered to cover this young phenom asked her after the match how the loss to Sanchez Vicario compared to her other losses. Venus couldn't answer, not because she was emotional, but because, as she said after a few moments, she'd never lost before. Time now for today's non-sports fun fact. Blackbeard is undoubtedly the most famous pirate in history, right? But you may be surprised to know that he wasn't really a pirate for that long. He was first recognized as one in 1716, and then he was captured and killed just 2 years later in November of 1718. That's all I've got for you today. More on the way tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.